While we have a short transition here, it's my honor to welcome our closing keynote speaker. The Honorable Harry Coker was sworn in as the National Cyber Director in December 2023. He is the second Senate-confirmed director to lead the office that is tasked with advising the President on cybersecurity policy and strategy. A retired CIA officer and career naval officer, Harry is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, the Naval Postgraduate School, and Georgetown University Law Center. And I'm sure that his favorite job was his joint duty assignment as executive director at the National Security Agency. Let me tell you a lot about that. So, as the third in charge of the largest component of the U.S. intelligence community, he directly supported NSA's director and deputy director in the strategic and day-to-day leadership of the agency. Harry's service to the nation and NSA was recognized with the awarding of the National Intelligence Distinguished Service Medal, the NSA Director's Distinguished Service Medal, and the IC EEOD Outstanding Leadership Award. Joining him on stage is Suzanne Wilson Heckenberg, INSA President, and Harry and Suzanne, I'm really looking forward to your conversation this afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So, Harry, before you got here, our VP for Policy, Bishop Garrison, made a slight dig at the Navy, being a West Point grad, Bishop, so I'm calling you out here. But just wanted to hear a little bit from you about how your experiences, your training in the Navy has helped you get to where you are today here in the IC.
Okay, great. Again, thanks for having me here. I'm always happy to come to INSA and support the mission because I know you all support the nation's mission, so thank you. But with regards to the Navy, I can start to way back when I was recruited. I did not know anything at all about the Naval Academy. I was in small town, rural Kansas, going through high school, thinking about whether I should go to college afterwards. But it was a recruiter. It came from the Naval Academy to my high school and asked the vice principal, who I did not have a strong relationship with, asked the vice principal were there any minority students that the vice principal thought could succeed at the Naval Academy. And the vice principal, to his credit, changed my life by recommending that I meet with that recruiter from the Naval Academy. So it was a couple of things. It was a strong relationship, at least from that mature person's perspective, not so much from the immature guy, that made a significant impact on my life. But also, it was a focused minority recruiting effort from the Naval Academy that found me in rural Kansas. And I say that because, yes, I was recruited because of my minority status, but no standards were lowered to get in or to get out. And that's important. Oftentimes, folks take shots at these focused minority recruiting efforts. Well, standards need not be lowered, and that's part of my testimony right there. I'll also talk about another significant lesson that I learned at the Naval Academy. As you can tell, I'm kind of up there in age. So it was a class of 1980, and every day I'm more and more proud of that class. We came in the summer of 1976, and it was the first class at the United States Service Academies that had women. And I scratch my head to this day going, gosh, it took our great nation until 1976 to allow women to attend the service academies. That's a long time, but we got it right. And that's what's most important. We got it right. And I suspect everybody here recognizes that our nation is more secure and better off because of that change. As long as it took, we got it right. So those are two seminal moments for me with regards to my Navy career. There's plenty more we could talk about.
Well, kudos to that vice principal. I'm not sure mine knew my name, and if they had, they perhaps would not have recommended me for anything. So we've talked a little bit with some folks here on stage about their upbringing, their background, how it has helped shape them. Mm-hmm. And so originally this question was more about your career and that journey, but can you talk a little bit about how you grew up, some mentors you had when you were younger, and then also how your career has taken you to where you are now in this journey?
Yeah. So what helped shape me, I was child number 5 of 9. So I was right in the middle. So I got to learn from my elders and teach my younger siblings, although I learned from them as well. But being right in the middle of a large group helped develop leadership skills. That's number one, leadership and followership. But secondly, those 9 children, 5 sisters. And that helped me to appreciate at an early age that there are no capability differences between boys and girls, men and women. I got to see that firsthand, which helped shape me. So I am eternally grateful for all of my siblings, but my sisters especially, by demonstrating there's no difference when it comes down to performance and leadership. So that helped shape me. Also, I mentioned the class of 1980 at the service academies. Leadership lesson there that helped shape me. I'll throw some numbers out that are not precise, but they're not inaccurate either. When women first came to the academy, they had a tough time, first class of women. And I say that because half of the upper class wanted to run them out, and the other half wanted to date them. And that's just a tough situation for my classmates and all the women that were in the service academies in that era. That's just tough. And it was a leadership opportunity for a lot of us. Unfortunately, some of us didn't step up to that leadership challenge as a freshman, as a plebe. But it was nevertheless a learning opportunity that eventually became a leadership lesson that I applied. So grateful for that. And the other thing about these opportunities, what we call small unit leadership. You get to know folks on a first-hand basis. And for me, I know it's a Navy question, but I'll tie it to faith as well. There's goodness in everybody, and there are capabilities that can be leveraged for mission outcomes in everyone. It's a leader's job to find it. And when I say it's a leader's job, I'm not talking about the person that's higher on the organizational chart. If you're on the team, you're a leader. You might be a bad leader, but you're a leader. And it's incumbent upon all of us to work with the talent that we have, and there is talent there. There's always a capability. So finding the right spot for the right people and being able to do that in small units benefited me as I have been blessed to lead larger and larger organizations. But it's also important for a leader not just to recognize those that are direct reports, but to look layers down and look for the future leaders and reach out. I've had the opportunity to recommend executive assistants who typically become future leaders, and that's been a great opportunity and also to see those folks succeed because they had the opportunity, they had the exposure. Not only the exposure to see how things operate at a higher level, but exposure of their capabilities to seniors that would make decisions going forward. And you mentioned mentors, some of the mentors I've had, I know one that many folks here will know, Stephanie O'Sullivan. Stephanie was Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence when she retired, but when I first met her, she was a senior in the Director of Science and Technology at CIA. And I respect the heck out of her because, number one, she's so smart, she's so hardworking, and she's committed to the mission. And she did, and probably still does, what I try to do is invest in people. And I remember one session that I had with her. She asked, hey, Coker, what do you want to do next? What are the next few jobs you want to do? And I didn't have an answer. And she asked, you know what your problem is? And it was a rhetorical question. And I said, no, I don't, but I suspect I'm going to get told. and what she told me was, my problem was I kept my head down. I was focused on the mission, contributing to positive mission outcomes. And her point was I need to look up and look around, be more aware of the environment that we're in, and be more aware of sharing my capabilities more broadly than just my assigned mission. Great advice that I've since applied. And the other thing, she was just so nice, and people could misinterpret that. They wouldn't do it more than once.
Right. Well, being here today demonstrates that you're no longer keeping your head down, right? You're sharing with us. So earlier, Harry told me there was no question I could not ask him, although I know his team is here today and they might disagree with that. But that's just a reminder to you all that we are taking questions from question cards. So please pass those along to our INSA graduate student interns all looking for jobs in the intelligence community. So wanted to hear a little bit, for folks who don't know, some people, get out of the Navy and they might go to one three-letter agency and stay there for 30, 35 years of their career. Can you talk a little bit about, you've had some different jobs within the IC with multiple three-letter agencies. Can you kind of share with us what those were and how those have influenced you?
Absolutely. I was fortunate in my last active duty assignment in the Navy decades ago. I was assigned to NRO. And just had a fabulous time at NRO. And while there, and working in the Signals Intelligence Directorate, I became exposed to the National Security Agency. And while there at NRO, I also learned, then anyway, the vast majority of the civilians were CIA. It was time for me to retire from the military, and I just figured if I was enjoying what I was doing in a uniform, I'd enjoy it in coat and tie. And I blinked, and 20 years went by like that. But it was that opportunity, being exposed to the National Reconnaissance Office and our colleagues from CIA that were there, and our colleagues from NSA that were there, that piqued my interest considerably. But I guess I could go back even further. When I was at sea on a ship, long time ago, and we were deployed, and back then the Soviets were overflying Navy battle groups, and the ship I was on, USS Ingersoll DD 990, we always knew when the Soviet bombers were coming. I was fascinated by that. It turns out there was a contingent from the IC that was on board, and they had Russian linguists, and they had unique capabilities that were able to warn us when they were coming. I didn't know it at the time, but again, that was my first experience with a three-letter agency, NSA. So having been at NRO, worked with CIA and NSA, and then I was, again, fortunate to have worked on what's now the ODNI staff way back when, and got to see the breadth of that. And just unique opportunities because we get to understand better what our colleagues are capable of doing. We get to understand their needs. We get to understand how we can help them, how they can help us, and then the personal relationships that will return and can be useful.
Can you talk a little bit about how those personal relationships in your current role have helped you?
Yes. And even before that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
John mentioned that I was blessed to serve as executive director of NSA. I think I was more surprised than anybody else, and there were a lot of people that were surprised. Nevertheless, it was because of a personal relationship with the then Deputy Director of NSA, George Barnes. George and I had served kind of together on a joint program 5 to 10 years prior to that. And when it came time for NSA to select their next executive director, George knew me well enough, knew my strengths and weaknesses, and bottom line, he knew he could trust me. And so he reached out and brought me over. Yes, that was certainly the result of a strong relationship built on trust. Right. Not only trust in my, trust in my integrity, my character, but also trust in my competence. And that's, from my perspective, two elements of trust that we need to focus on. Most times we think, can you trust somebody, what they say? Will they do what they say? That's integrity focus. But there's also a competence or capability. I could have the greatest intent in the world and say I'm going to do A, B, C, but if I don't have the capability, I can't be trusted to deliver. George trusted me. Hopefully I delivered well enough for him. But that was an instance where the personal relationship helped immensely. And being there at NSA, there's always the interagency rivalries, but being able to work with folks every day that are from different departments or agencies, you can tear down, break through some of those myths. So it's all about people. It's all about the relationships, and that was a key one for me. Today, in my current position, I work with a good friend and colleague, Ann Neuberger, who is on the National Security Council, and we meet weekly. Again, it's a relationship based on trust. We trust each other's word and capability, and that just strengthens us. I was in a meeting yesterday, and some issues came up about various organizations, and I said, hold it, let me just call Ann. So I got on the phone with Ann and called her and asked for that input, and it was a cold call, but she gave us all the information we needed. So I don't know that I could have done that with anyone else in that position that I didn't have that relationship with, but I'm able to do that with Ann on a regular basis. Likewise, I spent several good decades at CIA, and had a session with some of those folks today, and was able to just pick up and share information that's necessary. It's kind of like the strongest friendships you have, where you don't need to see someone every day. You can just communicate when you need to, and that's how it is on the professional side as well.
Yeah, that's a powerful analogy. I think we can all relate. So we've got several future IC leaders here in the room, some junior folks in the community. Any leadership lessons, just tangible leadership lessons that you could share with them that have shaped your career and could also help them?
Yes. Well, there are at least 2 times I almost got fired. Probably more than 2, but 2 that I recall. And one was I was in uniform and I was at sea. We were going to do an exercise with a missile system that was not so reliable. And we did the checks, and it checked out okay. But I was not at all confident that it was going to work when we needed it to work. Well, I was right. When it was time for the exercise live fire portion to happen, we failed. I did not, and so I almost got fired because of that. And why? Because I should have told the ship's leadership that, yeah, it passed all these checks, but something's not quite right. So I did not lie, but I was not as forthright as I should have been. And there's a difference between being honest and being forthright. Hopefully being honest is easy for all of us. Don't lie. Being forthright is bringing forth all of the relevant information. We don't always talk about everything we ought to talk about, and I didn't at that point. So that gave me a significant lesson in being more than honest, being forthright. The other time that I know that I almost got fired, I was working at CIA headquarters, and I got to my office that morning, Monday morning, and there were like I think 4 or 5 stickies on my phone. Call Director of Science and Technology. All right, so I finally got the nerve to call, and they said, come on up to the 6th floor conference room. Tony, you know where that room is. So I got there, the 6th floor conference room, and it's a long table. And all the seniors are over there, the director, the 2 deputy directors, OGC, mission manager, security, they were all there. And there was one person on the other side of the table. That would be me. And it was a challenging situation because I trusted but did not verify, and things went awry. I took the blame, as I should have, because it was my fault. I trusted but didn't verify, and didn't point out I trusted but didn't verify. I just said I came up short. I left the meeting, and one of the folks that was on the good side of the table told me afterwards what saved me, and those were her words. What saved me was I took the fall, and I didn't blame it on anyone else. We take credit probably more than we should, and we don't take blame as often as we should. We need to do that. And then another lesson that I don't have a specific antidote for, always believe what we say. We don't have to say everything we believe. And how does that go with being forthright? Well, oftentimes we run off at the mouth with non-relevant information, and that's the difference. But that's just something I've been thinking about lately that has applied. A couple other things is being self-aware. No one is perfect, and I've been in plenty of meetings with plenty of bright people, but I'm very confident I still don't know the smartest person in the world. But I know plenty that think they are and act like they are.
Yes.
Again, everybody brings something to the mission, and it's the leader's responsibility to have people there that are smarter, more well-rounded, just better than the leader. And if you can't find those people, the leader's probably not looking hard enough. And then it's still the leader's responsibility to make the team better. So being self-aware, we're not perfect, and oftentimes it's challenging to admit our shortcomings, but we'll all be better off when we do that. You're right. Some people won't like me saying some of these things, but
That's what we want.
yeah, I know, and that's what I'm going to give you. I know my knowledge limitations. I'll put it like that, and I always try to find people that can fill those blanks that I have. A buddy of mine at CIA told me that everybody has blind spots, and we need to know where those blind spots are and allow somebody else to fill in.
I think that's good, sound, practical advice. So you have over, maybe even longer, but since I've been aware of it over the past year or so, advocated for college degree requirements to be taken out of consideration for some cyber jobs within the intelligence community for contractors. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little about your motivation for that advocacy, and also what you hope the outcome will be?
Sure, and first off, I want to thank you for your op-ed.
Well, I had an intern write most of it,
Yeah,
but
well,
thank you. Yes.
Well, we appreciate it, so thank you. But our motivation on that, number one, in this great nation of ours, there are nearly 500,000 open cyber jobs, nearly 500,000 open cyber jobs in the United States. And no one could convince me that we don't have the talent. We have the talent to fill those jobs. Probably not looking in the right place, considering enough of the right people, and working hard enough to recruit, hire, inspire and retain them. So we have to do something different. So we've taken an approach where we want to remove obstacles to making these opportunities in cyber available to all Americans. One obstacle to remove is this 4-year degree requirement. And I have to clarify. We love the classical education, 4-year degrees. But we also recognize the difference between education and training. I grew up in the military. Education is broad-based. Again, it's classical. It's good stuff. It rounds us out. Training is job-specific. It's knowledge-based. It's skills-based. And too often, folks have used degrees as a proxy for skills. And that's just not the case. So by working with our partners at the Office of Personnel Management and our partners at the Office of Management and Budget, we've taken on this task of removing the 4-year degree requirement, as you said, for some jobs in cyber. And why? Because we need those positions filled, and we need them filled by competent people. When we have that requirement for the 4-year degree, it's an obstacle. And an easy example, as I look at Tim and our colleagues at the National Security Agency and United States Cyber Command, many military members, many enlisted military members. And while many of them have 4-year degrees, many of them don't. And every day, they are working in cyberspace. And why can't we take them and put them in these jobs? And so that's an easiest, obvious example. They're doing it every day. We've had the pleasure of going to some community colleges recently and seeing the programs that they have developed where they are training their students, not just academically, but getting hands-on experience with their SOCs, their ops centers. They have the skills, they have the experience, so let's leverage them now. As a matter of fact, one of the deans at one of the community colleges said that he had faced a dilemma because the skills that they were given to these 2-year students and the experiences, the students were getting offers for 6 figures, and the dean was caught. Can he really tell this 19-year-old, 20-year-old, don't take that 6-figure job, finish your degree?
Right.
Well, the best answer is you can do both, and then that's what they are enabling. So, well, we have folks that are capable, and we need their skills now. Our metric is we're almost 500,000 short in developing the team that we need to defend cyberspace for the United States.
So it's interesting. INSA has a scholarship program. We have 8 undergraduate and master's scholarships, and I am in the process. I have 20 more to go, reviewing applications. And I see folks who are majoring in cybersecurity. Every once in a while, I take the time to look at their transcript, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but they're taking like the history of cybersecurity, the future of the principles of cybersecurity. But I'm looking for actually the skills, and not all programs are created equal. I understand there are a lot out there that are teaching, those sorts of skills-based and the training that they need, but some of them seem to be a little more overarching and general than the specifics that you would get if you just required someone to have certain training and certifications versus a 4-year degree.
Yep.
So how will we measure success with this as far as removing those requirements, if they get removed, when they get removed, and what the world will look like once they are?
Yeah. One measure is going to be that delta, that 500,000 delta. We need to keep decreasing that. Another one will be how well staffed I'll say it, federal departments and agencies are, but it's also our state, local, tribal, territorial,
Right.
and it's also our private sector partners. For too many years, I bought into the narrative that the federal government's competing with the private sector for cyber talent. That's what I was raised on. We got to somehow get those folks over here. That's just not accurate, and I'm glad I've matured. We are complementing each other. And the basics on that are the critical infrastructure. We have 16 critical infrastructure sectors in the United States, 16. Power, or energy, facilities, transportation, on and on and on, financial services. And of those 16 sectors, a very large percentage are owned and operated by the private sector. And they're called critical infrastructure because they will impact the quality of life, the daily quality of life of Americans. So if those sectors are not functioning properly, we all suffer. So we need talent in those 16 critical infrastructure sectors that are primarily private sector owned and operated. We need to work together on that talent. So we'll see that $500,000 gap close. We'll see America's readiness to defend cyberspace close. We'll also have positive impacts to the economic prosperity that the digital foundation enables. That's something else I just want to take a sidetrack on that I've been pleased to embrace in this position. I had been viewing cybersecurity as purely traditional national security, and that's just not the case. Cybersecurity is not just relevant, it's an imperative for America's economic prosperity as well. And so having a better grasp of that allows us to help lead the private and public sector, complementing each other and developing the skill set. And what, questions coming in here. But part of that partnership is the approach that the office has taken in that eliminating the requirements for contractors on federal contractors not to have this requirement. And we initially thought that there was a mandate that said, if you're a contractor supporting a federal contract in cybersecurity, you must have this four-year degree. We investigated that, and that was inaccurate. It was just a legacy bad practice that we had passed on for years and years and years. So our private sector partners are working with us on that, as is OMB, and now our good friends at OPM are taking the heavy, heavy lift of transitioning this Occupation Series 2210. It's the largest IT management occupation in the federal government. But Rob Schreiber, acting director of OPM, another relationship, they have agreed to take on that heavy, heavy lift of transitioning that occupation series to skills-based. And Rob and OPM have committed to do that by June of 2025.
So moving over, talking about public, private, and academic sector collaboration, with the National Cyber Strategy Implementation Plan, it was released in May, as we know. Can you share any examples of how that plan can be relied on for collaboration between the public, private, and academic sectors?
Yes. Well, part of that is the two big shifts that are called for in the National Cybersecurity Strategy. The first one being to shift the responsibility from those that are least capable to those that are most capable. Shifting that responsibility, not burden. Oftentimes folks will say shift the burden. It's a responsibility. And the shift is not a total shift because the end user will always have some responsibility to defend cyberspace. Don't click on that malicious link. Don't rely on your default password. Upgrade your system. Always going to have some responsibility. The second shift is to incentivize long-term investment in resilience. That requires a public-private partnership. On the first one, that's shifting from those that are least capable to those that are most capable. Well, the least capable are the end users, schools, houses of faith. The most capable, federal government, big tech. So big tech, what can you do? What should you do to take more of that responsibility? Our partners at CISA have Secure by Design. So they have had a host of private sector entities agree to focus on Secure by Design, and that's important. And we get the market share benefit of being first to market, but we also know that it will all be better off if it is secure to market. So CISA has partnered with the private sector in accordance with that strategy to move that forward. Another area that we are working to partner with on the private sector side is software liability, a difficult, vexing area. We like to focus on the hard problems, and hard problems for us are challenges that have been around for years and years, and we haven't broken the code. Software liability, regulatory harmonization are two examples. But on the software liability, again, cyber impacts the foundation of the quality of life that we experience today. We have liability in cars. We have liabilities in aircraft. We have liabilities for many things. Why is there not liability for the software that impacts essentially all of us every day? Hard one, but we are partnering with the civil society and the private sector to advance the mission on that one. Very challenging, but that's what we do.
So I have a question here from the audience member asking about the advocacy for removing the requirements for college degrees and how that applies to junior folks wanting to enter the intelligence community. But what about the folks, we've got some folks who are mid-career, reskilling the workforce?
Yep, that's a key part of the National Cyber Workforce and Education Strategy as well, reskilling. And that's another area where our private sector partners are frankly helping to lead the way. There's a limited number of people, and so it's only natural that we need to reskill, and that's a fundamental tenet of our workforce and education strategy.
Great. Well, it's good to hear that. The INSA Foundation is looking at putting together some programming on reskilling, particularly in relation to AI. So stay tuned for more information about that. We had a brainstorming session last week about it.
Great. And on reskilling,
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think the opportunity is there for more of us to reskill on cyber. I think people in my era and a few eras younger than me perhaps, we thought you had to be a STEM person to contribute to cybersecurity. That's just not accurate. So the opportunity to reskill non-STEM mid-career folks could be a huge benefit for us.
That is refreshing to hear. So earlier in the panel before this, Karen Gibson was talking about a group of folks who peers or people that were above her, giving her all this feedback after she'd given a presentation, right? And she's like, well, where were they before the presentation to give me this feedback? So it kind of relates to this question, but from an attendee, but is there a piece of advice that you wish you'd had earlier in your career versus now figuring out on your own?
Yes, I've touched on it. It's all about people. It really is about people and relationships, leadership. In the case of presentations, we ought to have folks that we can talk to about anything. And we ought to have that group of friends and or acquaintances that will give us the unvarnished truth that can be painful. And I'm a sensitive guy, but I know I need to be put in check on a regular basis. I need to know where my blind spots are. So building those relationships, I guess, if this was Dr. Phil, I would say be your authentic self and show your vulnerabilities. But have someone that will tell you what you need to know. And that needs to go both ways. Again, back to that whole trust-based relationship. Pick out sometimes we're stuck in an organization, in a group, but that doesn't mean that we cannot reach out to others outside of our unit. I've benefited from leaders that have not been in my chain of command, who have recognized something in me and given me good counsel, and given me different perspectives that have been invaluable. So don't be shy about reaching out to others for assistance and guidance. People are flattered when you ask them for their advice. So that's another benefit. So ask for the advice, and you don't have to do everything, but you ought to get it and listen to it, digest it, and then act on the parts that we think are appropriate to act on.
So I have one more attendee question, and then I have a final question for you. Can you talk a little bit, and this is one of my favorite topics, about the value of public-private talent exchange for exposure and knowledge sharing? We have a former INSA fellow from NSA here in the room, Vanessa Alexander. So we have benefited from this talent exchange, and we have a current NSA employee who is on assignment at INSA in exchange, Sherry over there. So get to know both of them. But we have benefited from it. I hope that Vanessa has been able to take the knowledge she has gotten from her 2 years at INSA and being exposed to industry back to home base. But can you talk a little bit about your opinion about that and how you think it's helpful and how we continue this, because it is really important.
Yeah, it is important because neither the public sector or the private sector has all the answers on everything. It's an opportunity to continue and to enhance the learning process. We can take best practices from one side to the other and back and forth. That needs to continue. And I know there were some times where we had opportunities to do these talent exchanges, and I was cautioned to not do it. Like, why? Why not? And I was told that, well, if this government employee goes over here to that private sector entity, they won't come back. And again, maybe that's a good thing, but I also told our folks, if they don't come back, maybe it's an environmental thing on our side. Maybe we need to do something better to keep folks with us, if that's our objective, to keep folks with us. So I've always been a big proponent of letting folks go experience different opportunities. But I was asked, why do you want to do it? Why do you want to go over there? Do you want to go over there to learn, or do you want to go there to look for another job? One of those is the right answer.
Right.
Just this morning, I was talking to one of our folks about a similar topic with the Naval Postgraduate School. I'll be talking to the president of NPS next week, and that's something we want to propose. Have some of their staff or faculty come out with us for an experience tour, and then go back. One of the things that I've learned in this job, it's a strategy and policy job. I grew up as a program manager, as a technologist, and I always poo-pooed these policy and strategy people who just shifted papers around and didn't have an operational responsibility. I never thought they moved fast enough, nor with enough vigor and rigor. Well, I'm experiencing it now, and that's something I should have said about what do you wish I'd known earlier in the career. I wish I had had a policy job earlier in the career. I would have respected those challenges more, and I would have tried to help folks more. I'd have been more empathetic. So we need to do those exchanges, and you know, one of the things that we have leveraged NSA for is military service academy cadets and recent graduates. We do have them visit us because it's important for those folks to see the challenging policy environment now. So again, they'll be more knowledgeable and empathetic as they go forward with their careers in public service.
So the final question is, what is your intentional word that you want people to think of when they think of Harry Coker?
Oh, when they think of me, outcomes. Outcomes. I want to be more about substance than style. You know, so I want to deliver. Outcomes is what I want.
Great, good answer.
Yep.
So we genuinely appreciate your sharing your afternoon with us. It's been a great conversation. Nice to be up on stage with you again. And everybody, please give Harry a round of applause. So I think we're going to probably do a quick photo, but we're not done yet. We have about 4 or 5 more minutes. I can excuse Harry from the stage, but now I'm going to follow up on everybody's homework assignment after Herman does a quick photo, right?
Oh, not too close.
Like,
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate
All
it.
right,
There's a
appreciate it.
gift waiting for you off stage. So now we're going to move on with our word of intentionality. And I was going to ask maybe 3 or 4 people to raise their hands and tell us what their word is. Oh my gosh, I already have somebody. And why. Ideally, it's not someone who is on the INSA payroll who's answering this question. So Rebecca, you are currently not on the INSA payroll. I saw you raise your hand, so go ahead.
Reinvent. One of the speed people said it, and it really resonated because I've had to reinvent myself so many times in my life, and each time I feel like I've come out a better version. So reinvent.
I love that. It was my password for a long time on a lot of accounts. It no longer is, but that was my reinvent 1, 2, 3 exclamation point, but not anymore. So who else? Yes, Janine, you're not on the INSA payroll.
So my word is one I adopted probably about 2.5 years ago, and it's the word savor. And I really love that because for me, it's a reminder to be present, really use my senses. I can be pretty heady sometimes, and this reminds me to stay in my body and think about my intuition, and then also the idea about teasing out something really enjoyable about whatever it is. So my word is savor.
I like that. I like that a lot. Back here? Maddie, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
My
okay.
name is Maddie Catlin, and I graduated from the University of Maryland in 2023. And my word is perseverance. This last year, it's been very difficult finding a job and getting a security clearance, and I've been told no to my face or through an email about 100 times now. But I know that there's a job out there, and I know that that's in the counterterrorism realm or the intelligence community, and I know it's out there, and I know that with my education and with my personal experience, I have to stay determined, and I just have to keep persevering, and I know doors will open, but I know that those doors will not open if I don't even try to wiggle the handle. So perseverance is definitely my word.
Good for you. Well, hopefully today will be the last day you have to persevere for a little while, and you'll find a job this afternoon. So anyway, I'm linked into Maddie if anybody wants her contact information. So we have time for one more. Yes, Corey.
I think mine, like kind of going off hers, I'm a young professional, it's capable. I think that's something that is super important for people to view me as in an early career. Don't want to be overlooked because I'm too young or they don't think I have the experience yet. But I think young people have a bunch of talent and we don't want to be overlooked. We want to be known as capable.
Great, thank you. Corey, former INSA graduate student intern, now working in the intelligence community. So no one asked, but my word is, oh, go ahead. No, one more.
I'd say grit, but that ties in with fighter and survivor because just growing up, I've always had to fight for everything I have and grew up with very humble beginnings and fought, and here we are. And when I was in my previous role, as a Blue Badger, they always said, "Wow, she has the most grit I've ever seen," and I really liked that word, and I felt like it summed it up because I have no problem getting my hands dirty in this nice little jacket. So, yeah.
I like that too. Did you ever wait tables?
No, I was a terrible hostess.
Okay, but that instills a lot of grit. I'm a big believer in waiting tables. So I've heard fierce, transformative, empathetic, unafraid, relentless, outcome saver, reinvent, perseverance, and grit. My word is connector. If you need a plumber, come to me. If you need somebody to mow your lawn, come to me. If you need a babysitter years ago, I could find you a babysitter. And so I love finding a gap and helping people fill a void. So anyway, I figured out at this event 9 years ago, my word was connector. But I just want to take a brief moment and thank our sponsors today, Ariel Secure Technologies, Amazon Web Services, GDIT, Google for Government, LMI, Lockheed Martin, Mantech, Riverhawk Consulting, and Sim Software for your generous support. I mean, truly, we couldn't do these types of enrichment activities without the support of our sponsors. These events don't pay for themselves. So I really just want to give them a quick round of applause. Also want to thank AWIC, Clearance Jobs, and the Iron Butterfly Foundation, as well as Cyber Guild, for helping us promote today's event and participating. We covered a lot of ground. Please remember, we'll send a survey. Provide your candid feedback. We can take it. We want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. A lot of good, a little ugly. And so we're going to move on to our reception, but I just also really wanted to thank the INSA team. We've got Allie and Toya in the back here who probably didn't sleep very well last night, if at all. And they're rarely in the room for me to thank because they're usually out there doing something. So really, all the work that you all put in. And then the amazing INSA graduate student interns and our fellow over there, Lindsay, the helicopter pilot. Thank you for all you all did to make today a success. And we took a staff vote. We have moved the networking reception inside, correct? But if you've not been out on the balcony, there's some beautiful opportunities for quick photo ops out there, but just don't stay out there long. So thanks again, everybody.